I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
Very welcome to episode 159 of the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren, I'm your host, and I'm joined by somebody who I'm really excited to talk to because there's a very interesting photography festival coming up soon in Ireland. In fact, it's just started. And I said it's perfect timing now for me to get this man on so he can tell me all about it and tell you as well, the listeners, of the great things that lie ahead. So, welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast, Peter Gordon. How are you, buddy?
Thank you very much, Darren. Delighted to be here. I'm very well. Yeah, I'm very well and very happy to be on chatting with you.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's going to be a very interesting chat, Peter. You know, I mean, photography for me is something that I live and breathe. And I know a lot of people as well, even from an amateur point of view, it gets under your skin, as you know, as a professional photographer. So the whole aspect in relation to the festival that you've organized over the last number of years really appealed to me. I've gone, I think, to all of them, I think, actually up in the convention centre. And I think it was something which was really good to see the plethora of talent that's out there and the beauty that we have all around us. So I'm looking forward, like I said, to getting into the nitty gritty and the nuts and bolts and what goes in behind the scenes to get this whole thing up and running. So before I even start on that, let's tell people, who is Peter Gordon?
Jeez, that's a difficult question, Darren. Now, do you mean like on an emotional level or a photography level?
Depends on what time of the day we're asking, isn't it?
I think I'll stick to the photography. Well, photography-wise, I'm a professional photographer, as you said. I'm a landscape professional photographer, so there's probably not too many of us out there that are doing it as the bread and butter, because it's a tough one in terms of making things work. I do a combination of things within that, I guess. I started taking pictures because I just love taking pictures, like everybody else, I'm sure, that's listening, and the landscape was my thing. So in that regard, I haven't changed. I still produce work that has absolutely no chance of making any money. I do exhibitions, I create books, I do stupid financial things because I love getting out taking pictures. And then on the other side of it, I also, I'm here, my two children are downstairs, so, there is obviously financial imperatives involved, but I'm very lucky to also love what I do. And I run a series of like workshops and various events like we're going to discuss a little bit more about this evening. So that business is IrishLight. And I guess that's more what it's the commercial side of it. But as I said, it's also a very enjoyable thing to be able to make your living from rambling around the glaciers in Iceland and things like that,
Tough station to have to do that, really, isn't it?
It's a tough station. Well, it can be, honestly, Darren. It can be sometimes, but I consider myself to be very lucky. So, from a photography point of view, who is Peter Gordon? Someone who still loves photos, someone who gets out to do their own stuff still pretty regularly, and someone who runs a workshops business and events like we're going to discuss tonight.
Well, that's a perfect intro to who you are. I mean, you summed everything up perfectly. You know what I mean? What did you have for tea for night? You forgot to tell me that.
Well, I don't, I just managed, I'm happy I managed to stay away from any, discussions of who is Peter Gordon as an emotional human, because then
that's a whole different podcast.
We'd turn off your viewership for a couple of years and your listenership for a couple of years with that conversation. Anyway.
And you've alluded to it there, you organize events and stuff like that. And I've alluded to it as well. I mean, it's something that I've attended over the last number of years. Well, not the last number of years. I know we'll get into the reasons why, obviously, of the last number of years. But prior to a couple of years ago, you've organized a fantastic event, and it's called IrishLight and the IrishLight Festival. So tell us about that.
Well, I guess it's evolved and changed and morphed over the years. Yeah, quite rightly, as you said, it's been 2 years of nothing happening in that respect. Like, the same old stuff we've all gone through. It's been trickier for, I guess, people who travel and do events like myself. But anyway, let's not go down that road again, because I'm sure we're all bored of that conversation. So let's talk about what's happening now. So IrishLight was something that I guess because doing the workshops and that involved in, let's say, the hobbyist sort of aspect of photography, the people that enjoy taking pictures, it's their pastime, it's their passion, it's their love. And I've just always been interested in organizing things as well. I don't mind, putting events and things like that together. So IrishLight, I guess, was born out of that in respect of not just doing like a workshop that was 2 days. We have a big seminar day, like the big day where we have international speakers over, and we've a couple of hundred people that'll attend that normally, and the trade will come. We've had exhibitions, we've produced books, we've had international workshops as well, or people internationally coming in to do workshops, and then we've also ran a competition, which is the IrishLight Photographer of the Year. And we've been very fortunate as well in that we've had some great sponsorship of that over the years. Originally, Nikon came in and gave us a great camera, and really from there we've brought other people in this year. We've Case Filters, and we've Shimoda helping us out. We have 360 DPI, and Cons are always in giving us a dig out with different bits as well. So really that's the lay of the land. It's events, hopefully unique events in terms of, you won't get to hear these fellas or these ladies speaking all the time in Ireland and in the flesh. And we've got some great prizes as well for the competitions and that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at the moment.
And tell me, when did it first start? When did you do the first one?
2016, I believe, was the first one. And then we had up until 2019. And then then the hiatus, and then let's move on. No, let's not talk about that. So it ran for a few years, and it did change, because you know what we did initially? The first thing we did, and you mentioned coming up to Dublin to one of the shows, I had this idea that basically we would run workshops that were happening simultaneously. And the idea was there that the participants would be involved in something that was more than just a normal workshop, and we created a body of work from their workshops. And it was sort of like, here's 2 days in the life of Ireland on the islands. We did another one in all around Kerry and Cork, and that was brilliant, and I'm very proud of the books that we produced. And we raised a load of money for Samaritans. We did it for them a couple of years running. I think we raised 10 grand one year or something, or good bit of cash anyway. I can't remember the exact figures, but to be honest with you, Darren, I would love to be able to say I could keep doing that, but it was an insane amount of work to host the workshops. Then I'd curate all the work. I'd help all the participants with the editing of their work. Wow. Then I'd design the book. Then I would basically do a crowdfunding campaign to raise the money to print the book. Wow. We were doing the normal price of the workshop, so not making any more than the normal workshop, but I was literally spending 6 to 8 weeks of my working life, which I just couldn't sustain it.
Yeah, for sure.
I just couldn't sustain it. So if there's any sort of, wealthy benefactor that would love to support an Irish photography project out there, I would love to do it again, because there's so many people in this country that are brilliant at photography, and they love it. It's like, you can see it. You're embedded in the community in the same way that I am, and you see it. So I really think I love the concept of pulling people together and turning their work into a book, because nobody prints anything. And I think that's awfully sad, because it's so nice to see it in paper, and a book is what an expression of photography a book can be. So anyway, yeah, that's where that's at.
But you know what? I mean, just to kind of echo that, I suppose, and I do agree with you wholeheartedly in relation to printing, because, I've done a number of podcasts with different people over the years that have released books and stuff like that. And I've done videos on my YouTube channel, people about books, but it's really something that an image for me doesn't come to life until it's actually in front of you on paper, because we're living in a digital world, and something is scrolling by our eyes so quickly that you don't get the opportunity to study it, immerse yourself within the image, fall into that image and imagine yourself there. When you actually sit back with a book, with a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a glass of whiskey, glass of wine, whatever it might be, you can spend the length of time that you wish on that one image, and you can come back to it again and come back to it again, instead of having to go, where did I see that image? Was it on Instagram or was it on this? No, it's on my table. It's in a book. It's something I can pick up and relax. So I fully agree with you in relation to, printing images, and most preferably a body of work from many different people. You see many different styles. You see many different approaches. You see the beauty that we have in Ireland. And I'll never get sick of saying it. Sometimes I feel like I'm sick of saying it, that Ireland is a hidden gem. We have so much on our doorstep here. I mean, all we're short is deserts and rainforests. We've got everything else. You know what I mean?
No, I
And
mean, I agree. I agree.
yeah, and to be able to get out there with the camera and enjoy that and immerse yourselves and get the feeling of the cold air. I mean, you know, I often joke and said in the summertime, the only difference in Ireland is that the rain is warmer. I mean, but like, that's the reality, is that it's atmospheric. And that's the beauty, I think, that Ireland has to offer from a photography point of view. So, you know, putting the whole thing together, pulling all those people in, seeing all those different styles, that is something, I think, which is needed. You know, it's a body of work. It's looking at it in a huge vastness, but in one small area.
No, and you know what? The other thing, the other thought, and we're on the same, excuse the pun now, but we're on the same page with that
Yeah.
with that discussion. But you know, the other idea I had with it, which I'd love to do at some point, was I'm always saying this with Jelena, who works with me. I'm always saying, do you know, the resource of these IrishLight Photographer of the Year images, the talent that's out there, the pictures that have been submitted to us over the years. And I would love to do a book of that work. I would love that work to be an annual book, which is the IrishLight Photographer of the Year. We had the concept where we did the simultaneous workshops, as I mentioned, and that was a charity thing. It could be a charity thing again, but you know, like, think about the quality of the work that's out there, and the people are, they really submitted. We've had thousands of pictures submitted, you know, and you think when you're just out of those thousands, you're going to pull the best 40 or 50. I mean, it's a quality bunch of pictures, like it really is. And so again, if anybody is listening and wants to see the IrishLight Photographer of the Year book, if we can come to some arrangement where I don't have to be 6 to 8 weeks working without getting paid, I'd love to do it.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea to do it. You know, I mean, it is something, as you say, there's a huge amount of work, but there's a passion that's behind it as well, Peter. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, you can't really put a price on passion, except for the fact that when you can't earn a living because your passion is stopping you from earning a living. And
that's unfortunately where I was at. But but yeah.
And I suppose, look, you know, from the whole contest starting in 2016, I mean, it's definitely been a phenomenal journey, but how's it been for you organizing it then over the years? Now, okay, 16, 17, 18, and 19. So for the 4 years, I suppose, that were up and running, how did you feel at the beginning of it? Obviously, you know, the things that come to mind for me is apprehensive, you know, a bit of nervousness behind it. How's it going to go? But at the end of each of them, what's that feeling like when you've completed it?
I've always felt very proud to had the opportunity to facilitate something like that and to see the work come through. And honestly, it wouldn't be possible without, you know, like the sponsors coming in, and then you've a prize, and then people start to submit stuff, and then you see the quality of work out there. And it's such a it's an amazing feeling to put that together and to see it, and as an appreciator of what comes through, and you're just stopped in your tracks sometimes, you know. And Jelena, who, as I said, who works in the office with me full time, she's like, "Oh, look, this one's coming in. Look at that. That's class." And you know, so we're looking at it that way, you know. Like the apprehension at times. Sometimes people have been pissed off at me. I haven't tried to piss people off, but sometimes they have been pissed off at me, and there's been a bit of that, which was unintended on my part. But I guess what sometimes when you reach a wider audience with things like this, you're going to have more people, and the more people there are, some are going to get fecked off with you. But anyway, that's so there's been that on occasion, but in general, it's just been such a rewarding thing to do, and you know, delighted to do it again this year. So hopefully, and I'm sure we will, because there's been a couple of years where it hasn't happened. So there should be a stock of images there, an additional stock of images, because I think we have it. I'd need to double check, but I think it's 4 years. The image has to be no older than 4 years old.
Okay.
That people could submit. So there'd be stuff done over the couple of the interim years, let's call them.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that now, just as a side note, you know, it's been stop and start, obviously, as because of Armageddon, and we're not going to go into the whole aspect of Armageddon because I think people are sick of listening about it. But you know, you have an apprehension, let's just say now, that you want to kick it off again, and you want to be able to get that body of work that people have been, theoretically speaking, sitting on because they haven't had the opportunity to submit it to this contest and to the festival and stuff like that. So 2022 could be the best one ever, because you've got that huge back catalogue of people that are sitting there going, I can't wait. And then bang, off it goes. So tell me, what have you got planned for the 2022 contest? So
Well, the 2022 contest is open now, and it's we have I guess there's three core aspects to us. We have the overall IrishLight Photographer of the Year, and that's the person we have Nikon Z7 II as the top
very
prize.
nice.
So it's a good prize, and I think that as well to genuinely feel really proud of it. That measures up with any international competition.
For sure.
In terms of the quality of the prize. So then we're going to have a first, second, and third best single image. Irish for Irish images, and then we're going to have
Okay.
a best single image competition for international, because
Excellent.
lots of us like to move around and take pictures in different places, and that'll obviously be open to anybody internationally to submit that. The top prize, I just will say, if anybody's thinking of entering it, the top prize is going to be drawn from 3 images, and this occurred a few years ago. We just used to have best single image, and I guess how I felt looking at the images as someone, hopefully, that has a bit of experience in this area, was that putting 3 images together is much more difficult than putting one good image together.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that there's absolutely no way anyone was ever undeserving of anything that they got, because the images were phenomenal. But putting 3 together really separates out who can do it consistently. And I just felt that the top prize should go to someone who can do it consistently.
I think it should be probably better off to do it that way, because everybody can get lucky once, but to get lucky 3 times shows a bit of skill. You know what I mean? So I think that's the most important part in relation to it, because I know when I look at images and I go, geez, that's a great image. But if you see, as you say it, number 2 and number 3, it's no longer a great image now. It's actually a great photographer.
Well, this is it. And you're exactly hit the nail on the head, Darren, there. It's a great photographer. And there still is the best single image. I mean, we have a Shimoda bag, which are stunning bags. We have case filters, and we have amazing prints and frames from 360 DPI. So they'll still from Steve. You probably know Steve Crozier.
Yeah.
So, there's great prizes for the single images as well. But the big one is for the overall
Sounds
3. Yeah, so that's it.
Sounds good. And tell me, what types of photos then are allowed? I mean, look, it's is it landscape only? Is it urban? Is it street? Is it Jesus, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, there's how we could go through all the genres of
photography.
I know what you're getting at. Yeah, I know what you're getting
abstract.
at.
There's the word.
Abstract. I guess it's landscape for me, which can be interpreted for me as it could be urban landscape, it could be abstract landscape, but I think if somebody submitted a picture of just a cityscape, like straight cityscape without any sort of natural element in it, because it is about a celebration of the Irish landscape really at the end of the day. So that would be but within that, God, there's so many ways you can interpret that, and I wouldn't like anyone to feel submitting anything that they would feel restricted, but just to be conscious that there is a sort of a nature element to it, and then within that, go for it. I mean, I think I guess in that context, I've kind of laid out the criteria of how things would be looked at and judged, and like what we're looking for there is some originality, visual impact, and then only a small percentage would be for technical skill, because there's so many technically skilled people out there now, and I guess I feel to really win the top prize, the picture should just knock your socks off, in terms of visual impact, and it should have some originality. Like it shouldn't, if it's going to be Glendalough, my God, you better have the amazing light, and images like that have done well before, of well-known places, but you have to knock the judges' socks off with the lighting and the finishing and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of where it's at.
And I suppose with that in mind, you mentioned about Glendalough. I mean, as you were talking there, I'm thinking about Drumluska Cottage or the pier at Dunquin or something like that. I mean, I was in Kerry, as I mentioned there before we started, and I went to Dunquin with a buddy of mine who'd never been there, and he says, I don't know where my composition is going to be. I said, take a look at the ground. I mean, you can see exactly where your composition is going to be because there's no grass. Yeah. So you have to be able to find something different and something unique in a well photographed area. I think is something you go, where's that? Oh, that's where it is. I never saw that composition before. And that shows, again, a skill to be able to find a good composition in an over-photographed area. So Absolutely. I mean, Glendalough, you want to have some dancing swans, I suppose.
Well, I think, even like it can be the way it's finished, it can be the quality of the light. I mean, it could be the composition could be the more traditional one, but just your finishing is stunning and the lighting is outrageous, like in a way that you're not used to seeing it. And so I guess I don't want to put people off from submitting anything that's from a more photographed place, but just be aware that
It needs to stand out.
it needs to stand out. And I think that, well, I don't know, hopefully, do you think is that fair? I think it's fair,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, anybody can rock up. I have a question I ask people on the regular podcast, is it the photographer takes the image or is it the scene that presents themselves? And like when you think about this, if you go to a well photographed area, okay, technically speaking, you might get lucky, you might have the light and you might get lucky and, you could have an eye for a processing point of view, let's just say. But to be able to do it right, we've all seen images over the years that if it was processed a little bit better, it could be a banger of an image, but it was just copy paste of a preset or whatever it might be. And that's it, gone. It's up on social media. So I think if somebody's entering a contest and such a prestigious contest with some very good prizes, you should go that little bit extra to make it stand out. Because as a judge, I know we'll get to the judges and I'm excited to talk about a couple of them, but when they're looking at images and they're looking at another image and another image and another image, you have to have something which jumps off the screen at you and goes, wow, no, that's an image. So put the work in, absolutely, and make it, finesse it,
Finesse it. And I would spend, when I submit work to the various professional bodies and I'm like, I would be, in there just making it just right, tweak and contrast, lift a little bit there, darken a little bit there, and I could go into a rabbit hole with it. As I said, I was editing a picture from Montenegro before we came online, and I was probably about, my wife came to the bottom of the stairs in the office to me. What are you doing? Oh, sorry, it was like 2 hours just gone suddenly. Anyway,
and I suppose with that in mind, you've mentioned about Irish images and international images. So who can enter this contest? Anybody?
Well, anybody in terms of nationality can absolutely enter. The idea is that it's for the hobbyist community, and that, I guess, was certainly a bit of a bone of contention in what terms of what defined that. And I'm still not sure if I have the perfect answer that I can give to everybody about what defines an amateur and a professional, because in terms of landscape, it's definitely not quality, because there's amateurs out there that are better than lots of people that claim to be professional photographers. There's no question about that. So it's not just on that basis, but I guess what we were looking for, I did a whole blog on it, which is like quite a long blog, and people can click on that from the competition page, and you're hoping for people to be somewhat honest about it as well. It's just that it's not your main living, because I mean, some guys who are doing great stuff, they're selling a couple of prints here and there, or maybe they're teaching a one-day workshop here and there. It's not a big deal. But, if you're putting yourself forward as, I'm a workshop leader who's like, a sort of an authority within the community on this or on that, then I don't think it's really appropriate that you should enter a hobbyist competition. And unfortunately, really all we can do in that respect is when we get to the finalists, is we will search everybody online and see what they're up to, and if we're not sure, we'll give them a buzz. I think we had it put down that you shouldn't earn more than 20% or 25% of your income from photography. Again, I'm not going to be going chasing people in revenue, and sure, how could I do that? I'm asking, we're asking people just to be reasonable about it, and we'll do our research to try and make sure that that's as fair as possible. Anyway, so the bottom line is anybody from any nationality, any country can enter. It's mostly 90% Irish images, one section for the international, and it's meant to be for the hobbyist community rather than for professionals, and that's where we're at.
That's bang on. I mean, look, I think you've explained it there quite clearly, and what we'll do is we'll get that link, and we'll put the link into the show notes as well, so people can read that blog if they've got any questions in relation to it as well. And I suppose I've got one final question there before we go to break, is what's the time frame? So you mentioned it's open now, so people can start submitting now, and what's the time frame of the submission process?
They can start submitting now. September 11th or 12th, I believe, is the closing off date. I need to just open the website there, but it's about 10 days into September. So people have 3 months now to get their stuff in, and then I'll be doing a bit of curation on the images, because there's no point sending every single image that's going to be submitted over to, you know, people like Rachel Talabart to look at it. So I'll curate it, you know, right down and then send it over to the guys of what I think is you know, potentially next level to take a look at, and they'll have a bit of time to sort that out. And then we have the big day on September 25th, which is our sort of our conference day, where we have you know, people like Alex Nail and Mark Littlejohn and Isabella Tabacci. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Better than me anyway.
Yeah. Speaking, and then we'll announce the winner on the big day, basically, which is September 25th.
Okay. So look, I think you've given us a very, very good insight in relation to the contest thus far. What I want to do is I want to take a very quick break, okay? We'll be right back, as I want to discuss in relation to some of the fantastic judges that you've lined up as well to help along in this contest this year. So I'll be right back after this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Irish Photography Podcast, why not jump back and listen to the back catalogue we have of episodes, where you'll get some great insights from fantastic guests, gear reviews, lots of hints and tips, and above all else, keeping you company while you drive or relax. Thanks very much for listening. Please consider subscribing, leaving a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Irish Photography Podcast. So, Peter, like I alluded to there before the break, I'm really looking forward now to talking more about this fantastic contest and festival. And one of the things there is the judges and the amazing judges that you've got lined up. Tell us a bit more in relation to who you have and why they're judges for this year.
Well, we do have a range of amazing judges, and they're actually, times gone by, we've had some great Irish people as the judges, like Norman McCluskey, who we mentioned before we come online, and Rohan and people like this. And, you know, you could have people like Bernard doing it now for sure, who are, you know, embedded in the Irish landscape community. But I guess one of the things that happened for my own business, Explore Light, when all the stuff was going, as we did a lot of online stuff, and I've made a lot of contacts with different international people over the years through that and through the different events that we've run. And I had the opportunity through those connections and those friendships that I've created to ask a really star-studded line, international, and not, as I said, to in any way diminish any of the Irish photographers. But again, you know, having the good prize, having the international judges, I think it gives the whole thing a bit more weight, you know. Now, what I was also very conscientious of doing was finding a range of judges that had a plethora of styles.
Okay.
You know, so I wanted them to have different styles, because, you know, what I like, what you like, can be different, and what you know, probably someone like Joel Tinchler, who is you know, abstract black and white minimalist likes, versus what Thor likes, who likes, you know, more epic stuff and moody, and, you know, it's going to be different, even though I think they'll ultimately, the cream will still rise to the top. But, you know, so we have Rachel Talabart, we have Alex Nail, we have Isabella Tabacci, we have Joel, we have Sandra Bartosha, and we have Thor Janssen, or as I call him, Toti, but Thor photography for probably most people. But those 6 people represent a range of styles. And that was, I think, one of the real strengths of that collection of people. Not just that they're international and they're all famous in their own genres, but they represent a range of styles. And I also think it's important to have a good gender balance in these things. I think a lot of the time you see, you know, more men just dominating the situation with landscape photography. And I have always been conscious over the years to, you know, to absolutely just pick the people of quality, you know, but at the same time, I think it's important to consider that there's, you know, balance in that respect as well. So that's something else that was in my head about it.
And I think you're dead right too. And I mean, it's something that I'm a victim of here in the podcast, is because I think 99.99% of the guests that I've had in the podcast have all been male. And I've been reaching out to try and get some women on the podcast, and I can't get them on. And that's the problem, I think. So fair play to you for having a good balance. But I think more importantly on that as well, if you look at the different styles, like, you know, Rachel is an example. Her images are unique to her, and she can capture the waves like nobody else. And I think that is something that is great to be able to have as another set of eyes, to be able to see certain things in a scene and to give that image even more merit than what you might see it or somebody else would see it. And, you know, Thor, I mean, as you say, having the epicness all around him in his back garden, which is Iceland. I mean, I think I was on a Clubhouse chat one evening with Thor, and he said, he sent me a message. He goes, Darren, I have to go. I said, why? He says, eruption. And he was gone.
Yeah.
And the next day he was there, and I was talking to him, and I said, okay, we got to do a podcast. So I got him straight on the podcast to talk about the eruption in the unpronounceable.
I know, I listened to it. Yeah. And we
Yeah.
won't try and pronounce it. But it's,
No,
yeah.
no, you know, but like that there he's dealing with epicness, whereas you look at Rachel is dealing with wild waves and stuff like that. I mean, Sandra is subtle, and it's just very, very, you know, simplistic scenes, let's just say. And as you say, then black and white abstracts as well. I mean, that's something which, again, people have a different set of eyes to all collectively look at these images.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's a phenomenal lineup that you've created this year.
Yeah,
Well done.
thank you. I really appreciate you saying that and noticing that. And like, I mean, I can add, if I can add one more juxtaposition, which I think is really interesting about this. If you look at Alex Nail, he recently ran a competition, and it was all about presenting the landscape naturally. You know,
Mhm.
you had to
Mhm.
submit the raw files afterwards, and you weren't allowed. I'm
Shoot
not
the
going to quote
processing.
Alex's rules, but it was about showing a natural interpretation of the landscape. That's what Alex was all about with that, and that's what he's passionate about with his work. You know, is
Mhm.
going the
Mhm.
extra mile to get up the top of the mountain and getting the incredible light and waiting in the bloody blizzards if you have to. Where
Mhm.
Joel, who I've worked with extensively, is all about post-processing. And
There
his
you go.
philosophy is actually to make the picture not real. And
Okay.
Alex's philosophy is to make the picture real. Like literally there's a perfect juxtaposition there. And if
Yeah.
you look at their
Yeah.
work, what they absolutely have in common is they're both insanely good at what they do. So,
Mhm.
you know, again, you know, looking at it, you know, to find balance for what people are submitting, they're going to see different things, but what they both have in common is that they're high quality individuals. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
no question about that, you know.
Absolutely. I think, look, what you've gotten there together for this year, I think will be really, really good. And even from the people who are entering, to have their images actually reviewed by that panel of judges is an award within itself, if you want to put it that way. Because, you know, to have your images looked at, critiqued, and even if you go on to the next levels, for those people to be seeing that with the eyes that they have, I think is really, really good. So, I mean, hats off in relation to that. And I think,
Thank you very much,
um,
sir.
how is you kind of alluded to it earlier on, how is the advancement stages then going to work? So people are going to submit images through, you're going to do a first curation, as you say, and then send them over to the guys. So what happens then from there?
Well, from there, basically, I did allude to it earlier in terms of creating a sort of the set of criteria around, you know, originality, visual impact, and
Mm-hmm.
technical skill. And I will give them some guidelines on how to score that, because you see what can happen sometimes, and what I've learned over the years is that, you know, if somebody, let's say you say there's 40 marks for visual impact, okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and someone who thinks the picture has no visual impact might give it 0. And someone
Okay.
who thinks it has no visual impact might give it 20.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that can obscure,
Skewed. Yeah.
you know, that can obscure things. So I'll basically be drawn to, look, if you think it's, you know, give some rough guidelines in the sense, look, if you think it's has no visual impact, give it 20. If you think it is good visual impact, give it 30. If it knocks your socks
Blows
off,
you
give
away.
it, you know,
Yeah.
so just that, you know, to give the guys a framework to make sure things aren't too skewed. They will then return those points to me, and the amazing Jelena in the office will be, because I'm, you know, spreadsheets, I'm just shocking at that sort of stuff. Honestly, yeah, I don't remember anything. And anyway, so like Jelena will do an amazing job on pulling all the stuff together, adding up all the points, and then it'll just be a mathematical question of who has the most points, and
Okay.
then we'll be able to see who has the top 3 images combined together, you know,
Very good.
to
Very good.
win the overall prize. Now, what we will say about it, and what I will reveal as well, is that if you're, you know, you could also have the best single image, you know, but we will, if you've won the top prize, you will not win the best single image, first, second, or third. That will divert down to another person,
Gotcha.
for again, fairness, just to
Absolutely.
deliver
Yeah.
the prizes around to a range of people who are deserving, because there's going to be a ton of people who are deserving. You know,
Absolutely. I think it's a very, very fair way of doing it as well, Peter. You know, I mean, you
um,
can't, I want it all. I want everything.
yeah.
No, I
So
mean, look.
because the realistically, the best single image will be in the top three. It's
Yes.
likely, although you'll be amazed sometimes that, as I said, someone who has the best single image and they don't have two images that are even close to backing it up. So
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
so that can be a thing as well. But look, I can't. I have some experience in doing this, and we've learned over the years, as I said, that
Hmm.
to be more clear about what's an amateur, to be more clear to the judges about if you think it's this or that, and we have learned and developed, and we will continue to learn and develop with that. What I can say to anyone that's listening is, I promise that it will come from a place of loving your pictures and wanting to see them, and
Hmm.
creating
Hmm.
a bit of fuss and a bit of buzz, and giving out
That
some
you
good
want.
prizes.
And showcase the amazing quality of locations,
Yeah.
photographers that we have, images that are there as well. So yeah, the cream and rise to the top, I think, as you say, and I think it's a very, very fair way as well of doing it. Um, we've alluded to it there now as well. So we've got the big day. So there is another day out, and is it going to be in the convention centre in Dublin again this year?
Well, we had the exhibitions there beside the convention centre before, but the big day will actually be in the Royal Marine in Dunleary.
Okay,
That's happening on the 25th of September, and we will have Isabella, we will have Alex Nail there, and we'll have Mark Littlejohn, and then I'll be doing a few. I'm not going to do a sort of. They'll be doing inspirational talks about their work, and then I'm listed to be speaking, but I've kind of decided what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do like 20-minute, like little. I want to talk about depth in images basically, and I want to show people a
okay,
few core skills. This is how you create depth in Photoshop or Lightroom,
very good.
or let's look at 20 images. Which filters have I used here? This is a 3-stop to get a half a second. That makes the water texture look like that. So I want to talk about water and texture and what filters
Very good.
achieve it. So I'm going to do little snippets like that throughout the day. So people are
Okay.
going to get the sort of inspirational talks from the international people. I thought, geez, the Irish are bored of listening to me talk about my picture, so I better just go not present my work again. Just go, right, here's little core areas, that
Absolutely.
educational areas that I can hopefully help impart to people, and then we'll have some of the trade guys there and stuff like that as well to talk shop, and filters, and Steve will be there from 360 DPI, and all that stuff will be going on as well. So yeah, that's where we're at.
So you're going to do the practical advice and the real world advice that people can use, and the rest of the guys can give the mental advice and the inspirational advice that they can take home and hope that they can remember it when they're out in the
Yeah,
field.
yeah, well, I think as well, like genuinely with it, like thank goodness it's been successful over the years, and people have gone away and come up to me afterwards and said, "Look, that was really inspirational. I feel like I just want to go out and take photos now." I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah.
guess that's part of it, is to send people away feeling like that. And you were sort of asking me how you feel about the competition, and genuinely I felt very proud about that. But the last big day we did in 2019, and we had Mark Adamus, and we had Joel Tinchler, and we had Sean Bagshaw, and
Very
with
good.
like these, these
Yeah,
are these people are the top of their game, and I
yeah,
was looking around the room, and a pin could have dropped,
yeah.
at
Bang on every
times,
word.
and I was kind of going, Jesus, I genuinely feel really good about this, is just to see people so engaged. So that's the idea with it. If people do want I'll do the 10 seconds of shameless self promotion here.
Absolutely.
If
Take
people,
15 if you wish.
yeah, no, if people want to get a ticket for that, we've the old early bird on there, and go to IrishLight.ie. It's 65 quid for the full day of talks, or whatever. That's in Dunleary. So I'll
Brilliant,
shut
brilliant.
up about that now.
Well, look, I'll put the link as well, I suppose, into the show notes so people can go straight on while they're listening to this and book their tickets. Toot sweet to get the early birds before it's
Grant,
gone. Yeah, yeah.
thank you, sir.
So, look, we've also alluded to here in the past in relation to releasing books and such like that. I know we're saying, if there's anybody out there that wants to kind of help out in 2022 and put their hand in their pocket and, help out to get something like this on paper, they can do that. So, I mean, you haven't got a plan currently to do curation of the images, but it's something that definitely that you want to try and do if possible, yeah?
I would love to. I would love to have some support that we could. I wouldn't mind doing I could deal with curating the pictures, because that's already been done through the competition, and
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even mind designing the book,
Mm-hmm.
because I would enjoy that. But what genuinely what happens is that it costs about 10 grand to print 1,000 books.
Wow.
Okay. Now you can do it in a different way and do it digitally and make a smaller run, and that's also feasible. But just the organization of that is, and to try
Immense.
to raise the money, like we did
Yeah.
funded campaigns online, and that's like 30-day campaign, and you're just like trying to produce content every day to keep it going and
Yeah.
try to sell. So, I mean, I honestly think it's a beautiful idea for any business to have, like be was involved with Bank of Ireland and the IPPA before. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for Bank of Ireland to have a book produced of the best Irish landscape photography every year with their branding on it that they could
Mm-hmm.
give out to their clients and send to the
Mm-hmm.
branches. I mean, there must be a ton of businesses out there. And, when I say, well, 10 grand's a lot of money to me to produce and throw into something like that. I mean, I would imagine 10 grand is not very much money for, any sort of business that's of a decent scale.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
what you'd get in return would be a
Huge.
phenomenal thing. And, really where I'm coming from it is to produce this thing that we can all, as the community,
Yeah.
enjoy and go, oh, the IrishLight book's out this year, let's have a look at that,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
and,
Absolutely.
and the proceeds of it could go to charity, which would be,
Even better.
fun, even better,
Yeah, yeah, and any large organizations out there as well, if they can, that's tax deductible, they can write that off too. So, there we go.
There we
We'll
go.
put out the feelers. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll talk tomorrow, Derek. See,
Yeah.
I'll tell you how many emails I get.
We'll see. And again, in the past there would have been individual workshops as well that were done. And you mentioned about islands, and I think that was a very interesting concept in relation to it. I know Norm went to just off Bear Island, Castletown Bear, and stuff like that. And at the time, I remember thinking, that's phenomenal because everybody's doing it simultaneously. You've got different locations, you're all at the mercy of the light, and the IrishLight, I mean, it's so dynamic. It can be 25 seasons in one day, never mind say 4 seasons in one day. So are you hoping, or is there something going to happen around this as well for workshops, or are we going to wait until 2023 when normality, if you want to call it that, is returned to more normal times?
Well, what we have with the workshops is actually we have 2 of the big day speakers, which is Mark
Brilliant.
Littlejohn and Isabella Tabachi both doing a workshop here in Ireland. So I'm going to do,
excellent.
Yeah. So just again to kind of do something, that's hopefully a little bit unique in terms of what people can access here in Ireland. So one day myself and Mark are doing a workshop in Wicklow, and then Dara Muldowney, who does a lot of work with me from Dula Photography, Dara will be helping Isabella in Northern Ireland for a 2-day workshop.
Very good.
So we have those 2 that it's not the scale of the previous, the islands, like you alluded to in terms of producing books and things like that. And I guess, like you say as well, we're coming back into it. When we did the islands, we had 7 workshops happening, and we were trying to book 6 or 7 people on the works. We were trying to book 50 people on the workshops, which
not easy.
we were nearly fully booked, so we got close, but yeah, it's an undertaking.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I mean, look, I have learned so much in relation to it in the past, what you put into it, the passion that goes into it, what's ahead for 2022, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal festival, not just a contest or competition. I mean, the big day, I think, is something that everybody can look forward to as well, and meet people in the flesh. Heroes for a lot of people, I mean, you look online, you see these images, you go, wow, geez, look at that. I'd love to be able to know how they did that. Well, you can go along and you can, talk to these people, hear what they've put behind it, the story behind the image and stuff like that. So I think it's a great project. Congratulations in advance of getting the whole thing organized. I hope it's going to go as smoothly as you hope, if not better, on the run up as far as September. And now I think, the only final questions really for me to ask you is, how can people enter? How much does it cost?
Yeah, so for anything to do with anything that we've discussed at the workshops, the big day, the competition, it's irishlight.ie. So that'll get you to the homepage where you can navigate to wherever you want to go from there. The competition entry, it costs €5 to enter one picture, but you can get a deal on it there. You can get five images for 15 or €25 for 10.
Wow.
So we try to get, because we are getting the prizes sponsored, so we're kind of putting some price on it for the amount. There is a lot of work involved in organising it. But again, if comparatively to something like, that happens to take a view of the UK or something like that, it's or some of these other competitions that can be 10 or 15 euros per image. It should be very competitive there, and people can come to the big day for 65 quid for until the end of June. If they want, it's 85 euros after that. If there's any camera clubs out there that are watching or listening, should I say, we can do kind of a group of 10 tickets even, where we can do it for 50 euros. So it's 50 euros for a full day of talks out and about. So if anyone's in a camera club and wants to buy 10 for the club, or put that together, we can make it a better price again.
That's phenomenal. And as you mentioned it there, I think it's a great day out for a camera club. Full stop. Like you go there, you might go there. Like photography generally, landscape photography is a solitary sport, right? You're out on your own and stuff like that. Photography clubs are great because it gets people together and you can learn from each other. But what better way to learn as a group and to be able to have the crack and have the banter and then, be at that for a day and learn as a group that you can take these things back, as opposed to scribbling notes yourself. Somebody else is going to remember something else, or a little nugget that somebody said and go, oh, remember they said this. Oh, Jesus, I forgot that. Camera club is a great idea to have people there. And the fact that you have, a group discount, I think is even better as well. So yeah, calling all camera clubs, don't miss out. The big day, September, cancel everything else. This is what you want to do, because it's going to be the best day out that you've had since 2019. Fact.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, and hopefully we'll get you up as well if you're around. We'd love to get you up, and we can have an old chinwag and maybe record. We might be able to try and get a few of the people involved to speak, and we
could do that
if it works for you. Whatever, see how you go for yourself.
I'd love it. I think it's something that I would enjoy. Never mind, say, the audience listening to it, and if I enjoy it, then that's all that matters. yeah.
Well, as you said, and it's a nice kind of segue into coming to the end of the chat, is that we do this because we love it,
Yes. Yeah.
and you alluded to that on the break about making these recordings as your passion, and I've always said to my wife, look, if I really start to hate this and I stop having any love for it, then I'm just going to go do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So far, so good.
Yeah, look, Peter, it's been phenomenal to chat to you. I've learned so much, like I said, and I'm really excited now, even at the very beginning of this. And like September for me, come on, hurry on, will you? Like we're recording this at the very beginning of June. And I'm like, okay, June, July, August. And I'm already thinking, what am I doing in September? So I want to be there. And I hope from people listening to this as well, they'll want to enter their images. It's a phenomenally good price to be able to enter their image, to get it seen by that beautiful body of people, let's just say, to see their work, and then obviously to share on the big day, I think would be phenomenal. So hats off for you for everything you've done, and I'm looking forward now to seeing what 2022 brings for the IrishLight Festival. Good man.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you having me on.
Okay, listen, guys, thanks very much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed the podcast. I'll leave all the links in the show notes. And from me in the real capital in Cork to Peter up in the pretend capital in Dublin.
Jeez, I was waiting for it, the final insult.
Slán go fóill, everybody. Slán go fóill.
Slán.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating, and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.